Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're going to be diving into our patch v0.4.3 tier list. This patch is a little wild, but we're going to go on ahead and give our thoughts on where everything sits, and I think I'm pretty comfortable with it. I wanted to take a couple extra days, or just a couple days in general, to kind of form my opinions, but let's go on ahead and dive into it. And I think I want to do this like class-based. So let's go ahead and dive into it with the mages. Now, this one might be one of the more hot takes, but I have like a reason for it. Countess, I'm still going to put at S tier. The reason why I want to put Countess at S tier is because it's just strictly off of the potential of what the character can do. It is hard to get there. Like, she can be bullied in her like laning phase. She can be kind of shut down a little bit. She can be counter built a little bit, but the Countess kind of puts the entire game on a clock, and she's always going to get very strong. Like there's not really, like, you can't shut her down infinitely or permanently. She's going to get very, very strong, and I think she just has crazy potential. I don't necessarily think that this makes her the best mid. There is another mid laner that I want to put very, very high up, and I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and I think that it's Gideon. My S tier is a little bit stacked this time, I'm not going to lie, but it's because the balance is actually pretty top loaded, I think, and it kind of always has been. That's even why I added the A+ tier, but Gideon is very, very strong. So Countess, you know, I would say competitively, we didn't see Countesses using a lot of Megacosm. Some of them do, some of them don't, so she's good despite that. With a lot of the other mages technically getting a nerf because of Megacosm, Gideon was one that didn't use the Megacosm, I feel, as strongly as some of the others, but it was still really, really strong. So Gideon kind of getting like a slap on the wrist, in my opinion, versus some of the other mages who are getting a bit of a hit, a bigger hit. So that said, the other mages are still incredibly strong, that being Faye and Gadget. These are kind of like, these three mages, Gideon, Faye, Gadget, are like the big team fight mages, the ones that really do something really massive in a team fight. And Gideon is like the safest and probably the strongest. Faye and Gadget are just incredibly strong, for sure. Just very, 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 very strong. As for someone like Howie, I think Howie is like somewhere around B, A tier. He's not bad. He's very single target focused, but he doesn't have like the same burst and like scale potential that, like, say, a Countess has. He is ranged, so that's helpful, but I just don't see that like as much value coming out of Howitzer. But he is really, really strong. Don't get me wrong, very, very strong. But I just don't see the same kind of value coming out of Howie. And then you have Bellica, who I actually think is like reasonably similar tier as Howie, maybe even better than Howie as far as being a mid laner. I think she's an okay support, but she just kind of hits that middle of the pack for me. I think, like, as a support, she's okay. As a mid laner, she's got some crazy potential, don't get me wrong, but it's not usually the thing that I think you want to have on a team. Or even to say this much, I don't actually think she's as easy to play as some of the other mages, so that actually kind of, like, I don't want to say that bumps her down in viability, but it is a factor, right? She's good. She is good, but I don't think she's as strong as some of the other mages. Now, Shinbi, I'm going to go ahead and touch on. I think Shinbi is, it's weird. She's like really low B tier, really high C tier right now, somewhere in here. I'm probably going to conservatively put her in C tier, and that's actually going to lead me straight into the Assassins and do something like this, because with the nerfs to Megacosm, with the bug fixes fixing her E damage and fixing the uptime on her E, she just feels awful. She feels really, really awful. You just kind of, I'm playing her jungle mostly, so I can't really speak to her lane matchups too much, but I just don't imagine that she's like stomping the majority of her lane matchups right now. She can maybe do pretty okay, and even still, scaling this character, she just doesn't really feel like she has that same impact that she used to have. She would kind of get into a fight and she could stick around, she could, you know, brawl in. She was kind of like an assassin that had a little bit of staying power with no CC. It felt really good to play with her, and now it just doesn't really feel that way. She feels pretty severely nerfed to me. Kalari and Fang Mao, yeah, there's been some assassin item changes, but it's really like a play style issue with these characters. They have a hard time team fighting, and so they kind of just have this block on them where you got to win the game really, really early. It's a really volatile pick. I think for solo queue, Kalari and Feng Mao, you can get some really, really stompy games with them for sure, but in general, they're just not that strong. I'm really not a big fan. I think that they marginally got better, like a little bit. They might have slightly gotten better this patch, but I don't even think that that's enough to matter. And this may just be my old opinions still seeping through, so we'll see, right? Maybe I am wrong about Fang Mao and he jumps up to BA or something like that, but it just isn't feeling like much of a difference to me. And sadly, I'm putting Shinbi pretty low down here with them as well, because I just don't think that she's playing very well. So that sucks. All right, since we touched on Belica, let's go ahead and dive into the supports. And this is where like I said, my S tier is actually kind of stacked, and I'll touch on that. Muriel is still very, very insane. Global map presence, when the hero is good, is going to be very strong. She creates a lot of like anti-time windows where, you know, a team could find a pick and they could use that time to do something. Well, she might be able to save that pick. Or you know, if they want to manage lanes, she can split push and then jump over. Like she's very, very strong because of her global presence, and then her actual supporting nature is good. There's no like anti-shield item anymore, which is not like the craziest thing, but just saying technically there's no like old breach like there was before, and she's just really, really strong. To pair with that is Richter. Richter is still phenomenal. Now here's the thing, tanky characters this patch I've taken a slight hit because carries are crazy and tank items just seemingly continue to get nerfed. So I guess in a sense he's like not as strong as he was, but he's still so valuable. Like he has so much team fight set up. He's such a great potential jungler. Like he can jungle if that's the way that you like drafted a team for competitive, but he's like a pretty good jungler, not S tier for jungle, but really, really, really strong support. I still think that the best supports are Muriel, Richter, and then ironic enough, Steel. Now, some of these opinions you have to know, because I'm not doing like a split solo queue and competitive tier list. It is a bit of competitive. The thing with picking someone like Richter and Steel is they're a little bit flexible, because with competitive you do like a pick ban phase, like with drafting, and if you pick Richter or Steel, technically they could jungle, technically they could support. I don't think either one of these is very great in the offlane anymore, but these heroes are very flexible, so that actually gives them a little bit more stock in terms of their viability, in terms of competitive play, but just in general playing them. If these characters are on the field, they're very, very effective. Steel is phenomenal support, pretty damn strong jungler. Richter's like an okay jungler. I like him in jungle, but very, very strong support. So they have some good flexibility, really, really good viability in team fights. They're very, very setup oriented, and even though the carries are super, super strong, they're still really, really solid as well. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking in terms of hero viability. Now the thing is, I'm not just gonna, oh, I need to continue with support, sorry. Narbash, I want to put him and Decker in A. Now here's the thing, it's not that they're not really strong, I'm just trying to separate the A plus and A tier a little bit. They're very, very strong supports. I definitely think that they're better supports than Belica, but I don't want to just overload the A tier or A plus tier, because I'm going to put a lot of them in here, but they're very, very solid. I think that they're both consistently good. If you pick them, you're going to have a good time. They're going to be really, really solid options, and yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So here's the thing, I'm stacking the S tier, but I'm not going to throw all the carries in the S tier. And the reason why is because I think that the carry items are broken, and it's hard for me to like differentiate the difference between the carry items being broken and like the carries being broken. So that's what this patch feels like to me. I'm not going to just overload the S plus tier. And in fact, it's actually, as a non-carry player, it's actually really hard for me to even differentiate which carries are stronger than the others. This is what I'm thinking. I could be wrong, but to be conservative and just to give y'all the closest accurate information I can, I'm going to put all the carries in A plus tier. That said, I'm going to put them in order the way I think they're the strongest. I think it's something like this: Sparrow, Revenant, like they're 1 and 2, Drongo's 3rd, which is crazy because he's phenomenal, and then Murdoch 4th, and also again crazy, he's phenomenal. I think it might even be like redundant or like pointless to try to tell you which one is the strongest, because they're all good. They slightly have different playstyles and they bring different things to the table. So I think that all of the carries are incredibly, you know, broken because of the carry items. I don't think that their kits themselves are broken, so I should put them all in S tier, but they're all consistently A plus tier. All of the carries are crazy. All of the carry items are broken. You're going to be fine if you pick any of the carries. So this little block of the tier list is very opinionated. Let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. I would love to hear it. Sevarog, I gotta put him somewhere in here. It's not that I think that Sevarog is bad, it's just that Sevarog was kind of just like a gigantic HP tank anyways, right? Like you just build up your stacks a ton and you build up your health and armor, and then you're really, really strong. And that's cool and all, but I really don't think that that has like stood the test of time in terms of this patch. The other tanks are very disruptive. and that's awesome. Sevarog, yeah, he's got his snare, and yeah, he has his knockback, but I just don't think he has the same impact. And he's also been nerfed. Like, after he got buffed, he got nerfed. He's just in a weird spot. I don't think he's bad. I just think he's kind of like middle of the pack strong, and that's cool for Sevarog. All right, last but not least, we have one more tank, and then we're going to hit on the fighters, the bruisers. Rampage is still S tier to me. I still think he's the best jungler in the game. What I think that you do on Rampage now, especially because he does have attack scalings, is I think you slightly lean him damage. Like, one, you slightly lean him damage because building too much armor with the current state of carry items and breach, it doesn't really help you that much anyways. So going like 100% tank on Rampage, I don't think is the way to go. I'm still working on that. But regardless, he has the best jungle clear, or some of the best jungle clear. He has phenomenal early game presence. He scales, he does damage, he's got great mobility. He just brings everything to the table. He's just like a perfectly well-designed jungler, and I think that he's absolutely phenomenal. Again, I know that my S tier is stacked. It's a rare occurrence where I genuinely feel like all of these characters are just so at the peak of what they do, and even some in the same role, right? 2 supports, 2 mids, a few junglers. They're just so high tier. Some of them are flexible, and that's really, really important, and also adds to some of the viability. And maybe I'm handling my S tier a little inappropriately, but that's what I'm thinking for today. So, all right, let's get into the bruisers. Chimera, I have in recent days, I've put Chimera down a tier because I feel like Grux is just stronger than him because he's flexible. But I'm just so comfortable with the strength of Chimera that there's just no way, man. He's just so incredibly strong right now. Both of these heroes, and actually all of these heroes in this line right here, using Kingsbane right now. Kingsbane is so ridiculously strong, so much auto attack focused kind of fighting. These 2 characters really being auto focused, they get so much value out of that sustained kind of a build, and they're incredibly strong. I will say that in terms of competitive play, I think that Chimera is really, really strong, but there are some counter picks that I really don't like playing him into, or I call them counter picks. I think playing into Murdoch Drongo is really, really annoying. Playing into Gideon is very, very annoying, because of the way that they fight, right? It's hard to stick onto them sometimes. Gideon, his ultimate is just really, really frustrating for Chimera, but also he's just a less flexible pick in competitive play, whereas if you pick Grux in a draft for competitive, then you can put him in the offlane or the jungle. If you pick Chimera, you're pretty much locking to jungle, and the same could be said about Rampage, although technically you could kind of flex Rampage offlane or into the support role, but Rampage is actually just that good at jungle, where Chimera is like pretty damn good at jungle. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And last but not least is Crunch, who, yes, I'm actually going to put S tier. My S tier is absolutely stacked, and it's because if I step, like, here's the thing, if I drop Countess down, it feels a little disingenuous. Actually, this might even be better because I do think Gideon's that strong. You know what? I am going to do that. I convinced myself. I'm going to step the Countess down because I do think she's super strong, and it's about her scalability. But as far as like Muriel Richter, if I step one down, it feels like I'm leaving out the other, so I'd have to pull them both down. If I pull Steel down, I feel like I have to pull like Richter or Rampage down. Like, they're just consistently strong tanks that bring so much to the team, even with the state of the carries. And the reason why I don't want to lock the carries all in S tier right now is because I think that's itemization, not the heroes. But the actual heroes and what they're doing with itemization is just incredibly strong for the S tier. So Rampage, super strong kit, and I'm trying to look at the kit, not just the items, but this is just kind of what I'm thinking right now. Sevarog maybe here, it's hard to say, or maybe is even irrelevant. You can just kind of take that with a grain of salt. But this is what I'm thinking right now. I do think that the balance in the game is pretty good. The outliers are feeling like the assassins to me, outside of Countess, who has that insta burst. That's why the reason why I think she's really good. The supports all feel pretty consistently strong to me, even going down into the B tier. All the mages, except for Shinbi, if you consider her a mage, I would say are pretty useful. Like, even Howie's still good. I just think he's like lower tier than the others. And all the fighters, all the mages, everything else is really solid. So the balance of Predecessor is pretty good. I think we do need some changes to some of these new carry items. But friends, drop a like in the video, subscribe for future Predecessor content. As always, you should be kind of one of their. Tell me you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.